The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Jess Navarro, Aisha Morrison, and Christy Scales here with you on this lovely Thursday afternoon. Our last podcast of the week. After that, we will be talking about what the Dallas Cowboys did against the New York Giants for some Sunday night football. So very exciting stuff coming up in this episode. Let's get right to it, because is the sky falling? Oh my goodness, the injury report rather came out, and
The panic
that arose.
The Twitter panic.
It was there. It was at a 100. We're gonna bring you down a few notches, so we're gonna have this little time now to breathe together. We're gonna talk through things, and we're not gonna panic. There's no need to panic, right, Christy?
That's right.
No need to panic. Let's go through that injury report now. We'll start with what we already know, and then we'll get to the new. I just like to keep you guys waiting because it's fun. Tyler Smith was, let me pull that up actually. Tyler Smith is somebody that has been in the topic of discussion for injury.
He was still working on the side with Britt Brown in the media portion that was open at practice today, so he's still dealing with that strained hamstring.
There you go. He did not participate in Thursday's practice. And then Donovan Wilson also did not participate, but we heard it was due to very happy and personal reasons, is what Mike McCarthy called it in the press conference. So we'll let Dono talk about that when he is ready to talk about that. And then we had Sam Williams, who's dealing with that turf toe, limited participant in practice. I talked to Sam yesterday, and he had told me that would be the case. So I'm glad to see that there was no setbacks between the time I talked to him in the locker room to today. So good stuff there. Jordan Lewis, a full participant, which has been the case, but still very good to see J-Lu return from that foot injury. And then the panic starts. Tyron Smith, limited today at practice with an ankle injury. Christy, I'm going to defer right to you for this one. What do you know so far about Tyron Smith and what happened?
Well, it happened early in practice, but not so early that the media actually saw it. So he was out there for the start of practice and left with the ankle injury. Reports are that he rolled it and that it's not too serious. But with Tyler Smith already missing practice, and that's two starters on the left side of the offensive line. So you already had Chuma Edoga, the veteran free agent acquisition this offseason, working in place of Tyler Smith at left guard. So that would leave on the depth chart Awesome Richards, who is the rookie fifth-round pick from North Carolina. Those are the two guys that are backing up on the left side of the line. So we'll know more tomorrow when Mike McCarthy does a conference call, but we will have to wait for that information from Mike. But hopefully Tyron will be able to play. But in regards to Tyler Smith, the fact that he missed both the Wednesday and Thursday practice, that doesn't bode real well. But what Mike McCarthy did say this morning is that if he's able to practice on Saturday, then presumably he could go on Sunday.
Yeah, really hoping that it's more of a precautionary thing with Tyron. Obviously, if it was early in practice or whenever it occurred, to get him out of there, get the inflammation taken care of, start really treating it right now to maybe get him ready. But you mentioned Awesome Richards. Talk about getting thrown in the fire. If it's and crazy enough though, just from the interactions we've had with Awesome and stuff, I'm pretty sure he would be up for the challenge. He's not gonna. He does give you some of those Tyler Smith vibes from last year. So if it plays out that way, obviously it will be. I'm not terribly terrified. I'm not. I think I've seen enough of Awesome that I think he could adapt very similar to Tyler did if he needed to.
Yeah, the thing is, Awesome had the situation where he got thrown in in preseason,
Yes,
where
ma'am.
he had taken most of his practice reps in training camp at guard, and then Chuma Edoga gets hurt, and Edoga's going to be starting the game at left tackle for preseason because you're not putting Tyron Smith or any of the starters out there for preseason, and then Chuma gets hurt, and so Awesome, who's taken his reps at guard, is now your left tackle. Of course, he played that at University of North Carolina, but he definitely got opportunities to show position flex and versatility there in the preseason and in training camp. But I'll go back to something that I said a couple of weeks ago here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, because we know that folks join us as the season goes along, and so they may not have heard the conversation I had with Will McClay on the sideline before the second or the third preseason game. But Will felt that Awesome had played much, much better at left tackle in preseason action than he did at guard. And that's just because, first of all, he's used to it because that's what he played in college, but just basically with his footwork and
Yes,
working
ma'am.
in space, so different being inside than outside. But they felt that he played pretty well at left tackle. And as preseason progressed, they wanted to see him at guard just so because he's not as used to that, and they wanted to see if he could improve on the inside there.
Thanks for that, Christy.
Yeah, real quick, here's your reminder to text us all your questions, 817-290-3298. We're going to take questions throughout the rest of the show, so make sure to get those into us. Okay, so let's start with worst case scenario first. Worst case scenario, say both Smiths, and it's easier to say it that way as opposed to Tyler and Teron. Things can get a little tongue-tied there. What does the lineup look like for you? What is that starting lineup if both Smiths are not able to be in the game? And we're starting worst case scenario. What does it look like? Who lines up in what order, Aisha?
Just like Christy said, Awesome at left tackle, Edoga at left guard. I will say that we talked about Tyler Bass. TJ Bass.
There's a lot of Tylers. There's just a lot.
Y'all know I asked him, I know this is random, I asked him what his first name was. I said, what does TJ stand for? He said, Travis Jr.
Oh.
Okay, baby Travis on the line, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I know it's so random, but we did talk about him playing there. So if Chuma does go in and play and maybe things don't work out, that would be the next option. Obviously, you have at center Tyler Biotish, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele at that right tackle, and that is probably would be your best five. If it came back to it, put Schoon on. Schoon over there.
Yeah, you can help on the left side.
Yes, you can help out
on the
there.
left side.
Yeah.
And I know what everyone's thinking. If you're missing one or both guys on the left side, or if those guys aren't 100%, run right. And besides such great combo blocking between Terrence Steele and Zach Martin, well, the problem is the backside because the good linemen and linebackers can come, or edge guys can come and make plays on the backside. So that's a huge part of it. So it's not like you can just be totally your offense right-handed for the game. You know, you still got to be able to go left side.
Something I want to point out, and I didn't realize this until I really started bearing deep in all of the Giants side of things, was a lot of their starters also have not gotten preseason reps either. So I know that's been a big topic of conversation, and it usually is this first week of the season when, hey, your starters haven't seen the field in an actual, game. This will be the first time you see the starting line together. Keep in mind, the Giants are at the same playing field. A lot of their starters also have not seen a lot of, if any, preseason play time. And not only that, their offensive line is also on the rebuild. So, again, I know it seems like it is a big deal and it is an injury, but just look at things from the bigger picture, too, of the Dallas Cowboys are not the only team in the league dealing with offensive line issues, right? And so, obviously, it's something we're going to keep a very close eye on. It'll be interesting to see what that inactives list looks like 90 minutes before the game on Sunday. But overall, we had to go with discussing that because I know the sky was falling on Twitter earlier today. Christy, I want to switch gears a little bit. Is there anything else that you saw at practice today that is just worth noting? Anything you heard in the locker room? I know Dak spoke today. CD also spoke today. We can get into that a little bit. anything worth noting from practice today, as it is the last time media gets to see practice ahead of Sunday.
Yeah, you don't really get to see anything offense and defense in terms of 7-on-7 or team. They're doing some position group work, but what you do get to see during the regular season, during the media portion, it's mostly stretching, but you do get to see some special teams. And so today they were working on punts. And so you're going to have some changes this year in your punt coverage, just because guys like Luke Gifford left in free agency. Kelvin Joseph was traded, who is going to be the gunner opposite of C.J. Goodwin. And I believe that we mentioned this earlier in the week when we were talking about the conversation that we had with Jalen Tolbert on the Cowboy Hour Monday night that Brad Sham and I co-host. And Jalen got a rep in preseason at gunner. And I saw him get some work at gunner today in the portion that was open to media. Now, here's the thing about Jalen. He was star wide receiver at South Alabama. He did not play teams except maybe twice. He was asked to go out and catch a punt, field one, safe punt. That's where you just catch it so that nobody fumbles it. You're not expected to return it. Other than catching a couple of punts and safe punt situations in college, he didn't play special teams in college, and so he was at a disadvantage last year coming in at his rookie season, and that's one reason why he was inactive a lot of the year, because guys like Dennis Houston and Semi Fehoko had more experience. So it's going to be real interesting. And then saw Wanye Thomas getting work as the personal protector.
Love that.
So that could be very interesting. Yeah. So again, this doesn't mean that they're going to be necessarily out there first team on Sunday night, but that's something that's different that caught my eye, was seeing guys doing different roles.
Aisha, I know you've done a lot of digging on Wanye, and you talked to him in the locker room. What is an asset that he could bring to the special teams unit that maybe could be a little overlooked right now?
Oh, and it's just his fire. One thing I've learned being able to talk to Christy about special teams and having her on is just some of the nuanced things that go into special teams, but also too, there's an aggression that you have to play teams. There's an attitude that you have to have to play teams. And as we've seen, it can make or break the game. Like, it can change the face of a game, the special teams play. So for someone like Wanye, who's always looking to make an impact, he's just happy to be on the field, number one. Yeah. But he also is one of those guys that is a tone setter. He's a tone setter. He has that attitude, that fire, and just what you're looking for. I mean, to hear those guys, I haven't gotten, I'm sure you have, but I'm sure you hear the contact. You hear.
Oh, it's so intense.
It's one of the most violent parts of the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Truly. And someone like Wanye fits into that. You see the fire he plays with. Yeah. You see how he's talking to himself. He's hyping everybody up. I think he could be a good addition attitude-wise and the physical play for special teams.
Wanted to make mention is during the preseason games, any game really, when the Cowboys are at AT&T Stadium, on the big Jumbotron, it's always a portion right before the game where it shows the team huddle and who's kind of in the middle pumping everybody up. During the preseason, it started out as DeMarvion Overshone, and then after his injury, when he was no longer playing, it became Wanye Thomas, and Wanye Thomas was right in the middle of that huddle pumping everyone up. So to your point, Aisha, he is that guy. He is a team-friendly player. Talking to me in the locker room, he pumped me up. I think it says a lot about a guy. Keep in mind, Wanye, still new to the team, still really learning everybody and acclimating himself to the reporters around him. He remembered my name. Just, hey, Jess, what's up? How are you doing? You feeling good today? Yeah. I'm like, dude, you don't have to pump me up. It's okay. Yeah. You're good. I'm not playing, but he's very personable. He's somebody that you're rooting for, and he's a guy that his teammates really love to be around.
Yeah, I'd like to take people back to something last year, Wanye's rookie year, and some of the members of the rookie club were part of this, but we had a community event here at the Star in Frisco, and it was with one of the local elementary schools, and it's called Everybody Plays. And so it was a full class. It was like, I believe it was fifth graders, but students with special needs, the gym portion, the PE, is sometimes difficult for them. And so what this was the special needs kids and the rest of the class, and they were all here, and we put them basically through what we do with the football youth camps, and then we also had a couple of the cheerleaders. I believe it was Jada and Tori. We had the kids were in groups, and they would go around to like 4 different groups and take part in either the little cheer dance or running some different drills. Dennis Houston was part of it. Avion Collins, who was an offensive lineman for us last year, was part of it, and Wanye. And to see the way he interacted with those kids, especially the special needs kids, I mean, it's just like, they were all wonderful with all the kids, but Wanye especially, that enthusiasm was infectious. And so I remember just taking a brief little video and posting it on social media, and then Wanye's mother saw it. I tagged Wanye, and then Wanye's mother saw it and reposted it and made some kind of nice comment and stuff. So that's the joy of this job, is getting to know some of the guys and see what they do off the field or tangentially as members of the Dallas Cowboys. And so that's why you're rooting hard for guys like this.
Can attest to that. During the hospital visits in Christmas time, I was in tears. Everybody was in tears. So definitely can attest to that. We're going to take our first break. Aisha, I know you are chomping at the bit with these notes. I see your key matchups over here.
I'm sure Christy got some too, though.
You're ready to go. We do have a special guest coming up in our next segment. We'll talk all about that here in just a minute. But first, let's take our first break. Text us your questions, 817-290-3298. We'll be right back. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
To Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We are going to get into some of the key matchups with your Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. But first, experience the feeling of game day every day at the Miller Lighthouse at the Star. Now open just steps away from the Tostitos Championship Plaza, Miller Lighthouse features a cooler full of grab-and-go beverages and snacks, tailgate games, a recharging lounge, a Dallas Cowboys photo op, and complimentary services. For more info, you can visit the Star District, thestar.com/Miller Lighthouse there. Okay, ladies, let's get into it real quick. Text us all your questions, 817-290-3298. Let us know what you want to know about your Dallas Cowboys playing the Giants on Sunday night. In the meantime, we are going to start getting into a lot of these key matchups. We should have a special guest calling in here in the next few minutes or so. But real quick before she calls in, ladies, I want to start by saying this is such an exciting week already. And then you add the level of this is a divisional component into the mix and how important it is for the Cowboys to get off to a winning start within this division. Christy, let's start with you and then we'll jump to Aisha. What has it been like for you to see the NFC East just grow as a division overall?
Well, it was the NFC least for a few years. And then
rough.
last year, 3 of the 4 teams not only made the playoffs, but advanced to the divisional round.
Yep.
And then, so that's the thing about the Giants. They kind of barely slid into the postseason at 9-7-1, but then they won their wild card game over Minnesota and then lost in the divisional round to Philadelphia. What's interesting is when they were getting on their roll, the thing about this Giants team, this thing about that coaches talk about learning to win, they were excellent at close games.
Right.
They had some comebacks in the fourth quarter and second half. So this team, when it comes to the games that are so close, and most of them in the NFL are,
Sure.
they were able to come through and get the victories. What's interesting, if you just look statistically, again, this is a team that advanced to the divisional round, yet last year were outscored by their opponents.
There you go.
So what does that tell you? It tells you they had a lot of close games, but with those 9 wins, it's a lot of these comebacks and able to eke it out.
Yeah. Real quick, we do have our special guest on the phone, and I
Okay,
know
yeah,
she's
no,
on a
that's-
bit of a time crunch, so we're gonna
No,
have
no,
you stew
no.
on that question. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so excited to have a special guest back on with us that was on last season. That is none other than Madelyn Burke. She covers the New York Giants with the Giants. And then, Madelyn, you just do so much. I can't even keep up anymore. How are you? Thanks so much for coming back on with us.
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be joining you ladies today.
Absolutely. Let's get right to it. So, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Sunday Night Football. Madelyn, what are some of the key things that on this side of the ball for the Cowboys and Cowboys fans alike that they need to look out for when it comes to the New York Giants and the strengths that have really been built upon in the offseason for you guys?
Well, I think the biggest thing is this year's Giants isn't last year's Giants. I mean, as much as there are the core pieces still intact, they made a lot of offensive upgrades. You know, of course, trading for Darren Waller, getting Paris Campbell on the offensive side of the ball, drafting the wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. That receiving core and that skill position core really has been elevated dramatically from last year. And, you know, this is a team in which, you know, last season, Daniel Jones, he set, you know, career highs in passing yards and passing touchdowns and passer rating when he was throwing to the likes of Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James as his main wide receivers. Now, and no disrespect to either of those guys, you know, Isaiah Hodgins still on the roster, but, you know, now that they've elevated that receiving core room and gotten a big target in Darren Waller as well, it's going to be interesting for Giants fans to see what kind of growth this offense takes now that there are, you know, some more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, so this is Aisha, by the way. But since we're staying on that side of the ball, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Evan Neal. To his standards and to a lot of folks that saw him coming out of the draft, he had a bit of a down year, his rookie year. What improvements have you seen from him, and how do you think he matches up against DeMarcus Lawrence that gave him some fits in the first game last year?
Oh yeah, I mean that's going against DeMarcus Lawrence for a rookie is baptism by fire.
That's fair, ma'am.
Right?
That's fair.
You know this, and it's when Evan Neal was drafted into the National Football League. One of the biggest points of emphasis was his durability.
Yes.
Right, in his college career, he had barely ever missed a game, hadn't really dealt with injury, but last year he was dealing with several injuries, and it was the first time in his football career that he had to play kind of hurt and play through them and deal with managing that. And that's something that's new for an athlete to manage, but managing that in your rookie year at the NFL as well is going to be difficult. So he is healthy this year, which I think is the biggest difference for him. And I would anticipate, you know, that second year growth. A lot of people are giving that comparison to Andrew Thomas, right? Because Andrew Thomas at the left side, the left tackle, for the New York Giants, you know, he came in and really struggled his rookie year, but then his sophomore year made a huge jump. Last year was one of the best tackles in the NFL. Just signed a significant deal with the Giants to stay for the next several years as well. And so people are looking at Andrew Thomas as a model of what could happen for Evan Neal as well. That being said, all people are different people, right? Evan Neal is his own guy. He absolutely has Andrew Thomas as a mentor and an ally and somebody who's helping him learn, you know, how to play the tackle position, how to manage things. But the most significant element and aspect of what he went through last year was dealing with those injuries and playing hurt and playing through them. Now that he's healthy and now that he's kind of feeling fresh, I would anticipate seeing the Evan Neal that we expected coming out of college.
Thank you for that.
I'd like to take it to the defensive side of the ball for the Giants because a lot of change in the defensive backfield and the two rookies at cornerback and Adoree Jackson moving inside, and we presume that he'll be playing slot, so might be matched up against CeeDee Lamb again. But what do you see with? I don't think it's a surprise that Deonte Banks, a first-round pick, is starting, but that you have Trey Hawkins. I think that's a new name for a lot of Cowboy fans.
Oh, it's a very new name. I mean, he was a sixth-round pick out of Old Dominion, and I don't think even, Giants fans expected him to see much playing time, let alone win that starting corner spot, but he absolutely has. And, Trey and Tay, Deonte Banks, who, Cowboys fans may not know this yet, but he actually goes by Tay now. So we're trying to get everyone on board with that because he's like, this is what it is. So Trey and Tay are on the outside, and the two of them, you would think that they grew up together with the amount of time they spend together. It's great. But watching these two rookies and the way they've shut things down so far in the preseason, Adoree Jackson sliding into the slot, as you mentioned. I mean, he's faced CeeDee Lamb quite a bit already. Last year, you remember that matchup where CeeDee had that one-handed touchdown catch that Adoree remembers quite well. And he said, hey, listen, it was a great throw, great catch. Got to kind of tip your hat to that, show some respect, but get back up there and play another down. They saw each other on a couple plays, but now that Adoree will likely be in the slot, I would anticipate that those two will be spending a lot of time together on Sunday night. It's going to be a matchup to watch. And listen, while the rookie corners have impressed, they are still rookies. So there are still questions about what it's going to look like, not just when you're playing a regular season NFL game, but of course their very first regular season game is under the Sunday Night Football lights. It's going to be, a lot of nerves for these young guys. How will they handle it? Of course, in a rookie year, you're expecting some moments of teachability, but I'm anticipating it'll be a good one, and especially with Adoree kind of leaning into that leadership role for these guys as well. He said, I remember being the young guy and vets like Logan Ryan kind of coming to me and telling me this is how you navigate, this is how you move in these spaces. He goes, now I'm the veteran, and he's really embraced that role and helped these guys along.
Very good stuff. Madelyn, my next question for you is about a guy named Darren Waller. You might know him very well. The Giants acquired him on a 3-year deal this offseason. This morning in a press conference, Mike McCarthy said that he's a focal point, and the most interesting part of seeing him play in his Giants debut will be how the Giants utilize him. What have you seen from him in your time that you've gotten to see him in practices and training camp and all of that time?
He's a guy who stands out on the field. He is a big man, and it's funny because he's, a tight end. He works with the tight ends quite a bit, but he also spends some time working with the receivers. And Darius Slayton, one of the Giants wide receivers, made a joke, said, listen, when he's working with the receivers, that's great, but I have to make a point not to stand next to him because I don't dare be photographed standing next to Darren Waller. It's going to make me look small. And Waller is a big body target, somebody who has become an early favorite. I mean, the one series that we saw the starters get in the preseason, Daniel Jones went to Darren Waller the first 3 plays. That being said, we know how much Daniel Jones has a chemistry with the tight end position as well. Last year, the amount of targets Daniel Bellinger got out of that spot as well. So the option of adding Darren Waller, whether it be in the tight end, whether it be, running some 2 tight end sets or having him line up as a receiver, he is such a versatile player, and you've seen the evolution of the game so much so that positional versatility is so much more common, right? The tight end isn't this kind of position that's in a box that you must block or you must do this or you must do that. Yeah. He's a football player. He's a skill position player. He's a fantasy flex player. And he's become somebody who, makes plays on a regular basis. And outside of the highlight play interception that Jason Pinnock had on him in training camp, it's really, he's been tough to defend.
Yeah, I expect to see a lot of Darren on third down, which is a key element to kind of some of the matchups I'm looking at. Just the Giants struggling on third down last year. I believe he's going to be a big target for Daniel Jones on those third down plays. My question for you is, I really want to know what you have seen from it slipped me. Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau.
Oh.
Yes, he is another gentleman that dealt with some injuries his first year. I know he's really looking to bounce back this year. What are some things you've seen from him in practice? How's his camp gone? I would really love to know.
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, both on the outside, are both coming in healthy, which is going to be helpful for this team because last year both of them dealt with injury. Azeez is a year ahead of Kayvon, and Azeez had set the rookie sack record the year prior. So last season, Kayvon looked at that and said, I want to beat that. And he was very focused on kind of collecting those sacks, collecting those numbers. He acknowledged that, though, this summer and this spring, saying, I don't really want to focus so much on having a certain number that I want to hit. I would rather focus on executing and making the plays and making my assignments and let the sacks find themselves. He goes, that being said, Azeez and I are definitely going to be meeting at the quarterback quite a bit, and we plan to. So, he's taken the pressure off of himself of here's a certain number of sacks that I want to hit and forcing it and saying, all right, let me just execute my fundamentals and go back to the basics and trust that those things will come. And he also, he's a very wise young man as well. And he said, if you're not evolving and you're not changing, the game's going to go away from you. And he said he watches tape of himself from last year, and sometimes he'll cringe, not because it's bad, but because he's like, I had so much to learn in that moment. And being able to reflect back on those times and saying, okay, here's who I was as a player, here's who I am now, and here's how I want to be, is the way that Kayvon's approaching this season. The fact that he and Azeez are both healthy on the outside, on the edge, is going to be good for this Giants defense. So if they can stay so.
I got one last player I want to ask you about because, and he's a rookie, and I don't know how much he's going to get in, but Jalen Hyatt, because folks who are tuned in to this podcast, a lot of them love college football as well. He was the Biletnikoff Award winner at University of Tennessee. How much do you think that he's going to be used in this opener, and how are they using him, or have used him through camp and preseason?
Well, the college football fans listening will absolutely remember that game against Alabama in which he scorched to Crimson Tide, and that one really put him on the radar. The fact that he fell to the third round was a steal for the Giants. A lot of people, I think, in this organization are thinking, because when you look at a player coming out of college, it's important to contextualize. There's a difference between what a player can do and what a player is asked to do. And when a player is asked to do a limited amount of things and executes those things well, that's great. But sometimes, folks might oversimplify and say, well, that's all that this player can do. When in fact, Jalen Hyatt has shown that he can do a lot more than that. He's got a lot of explosiveness, and speed, of course, is one of his go-to points of pride. The players on the practice field wear GPS trackers to make sure they're getting the right amount of work in, and they're balancing things and such. And his GPS tracker, the top speed that he's hit has been over 24 miles per hour.
Oh, my gosh.
Multiple times.
Wow.
And for context, the fastest recorded speed in an NFL game is 23.2, and that's Tyreek Hill. So granted, this GPS, this GPS hitting 24 miles per hour multiple times. Now, this is in shells. This is not in full pads and all that. So the full pads might slow him down a little bit, but still, this guy is fast. And that's something that, people are noticing. And, you see his limited action, or, you see a lot of his action in the preseason. Early on in that Jets game, he created so much separation from Sauce Gardner that people were kind of running that back like, let me see that again.
Wait, I'm sorry. You said run away from Sauce Gardner. That's we thought that was not possible.
Right, I know. If you watch in that first quarter of the game against the Jets, Jalen Hyatt had a play in which he created so much separation. This man is fast. Now, that being said, I'm one to tamper expectations on rookies because, again, you still a lot to learn in the National Football League, but he can when he gets open field, it's like a blur, and that's been a lot of fun to watch. And they're, getting creative with him. He's gotten a lot of run with the starters. Being a speed guy and in an offense that has really prioritized speed in this offseason with the additions that, I mentioned, bringing Paris Campbell over from the Colts. He's another fast guy. Darius Slayton, he's a guy who, out of Auburn, was known for his speed. He dealt with some hamstring injuries early on in his career, but now that he's healthy and he's got his got his confidence back after restructuring his deal last year, taking a pay cut to stay with the Giants, and kind of re-earning the trust of the organization, and then agreeing to a contract in the offseason. Slayton's another speed guy. The offense and the way the Giants have structured it has been around opening things up, prioritizing it, and being able to spread the ball down the field a little bit. And Jalen Hyatt, I think, is going to be an absolute factor in that.
Madelyn, we appreciate you so much. You always give us such good stuff when we have you on the show.
Yeah, baby, she answered all my
This
questions.
is the best. Absolutely the best.
Thank you.
Real quick before we go, is there any injury updates on the Giants side of things that are worth noting ahead of tomorrow?
Ahead of tomorrow, nothing significant. Of course, Giants did not practice today. We're still kind of looking at, no players that are listed as DNPs for what practice would be today. There's a couple guys, dealing with some things that, but nothing significant to note at this point.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Madelyn, for joining us. Always an honor talking to you, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again come November. And if you're traveling to MetLife, which I'm sure you are, enjoy the game. And if anybody sees you and they're Cowboys fans giving you a hard time, let us know.
Appreciate you. As much as it's a rivalry on the field, it's all love. Thank you so much.
All love.
Thanks,
Madelyn.
Yes,
Bye, Madelyn. Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Madelyn. We're going to take our last break of this segment. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about some key matchups in Sunday's game against the Giants. We'll be right back. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to continue talking all things Cowboys and Giants, but first, a fan favorite, Market at the Star, presented by Fleestyle, will take place on Saturday, September 9th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. out on the Tostitos Championship Plaza. Come shop from 50-plus local makers offering art, fashion, decor, and more at this free outdoor market. Visit thestardistrict.com for more information. I love when these things say free.
I know.
I love that.
I get so excited.
That's my favorite word.
I
Free.
know.
I love it. Okay. Well, if you have any questions during this last segment, please shoot us a text at 817-290-3298. We would love to answer them for you. Ladies, I love having Madelyn on. Always just
she is great.
Such a great guest on this podcast. We're going to try to do that for you guys throughout the course of the season, of getting, some looks from the other side. I think it's really important to do that, and we hear perspective from opposing teams as well. But let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Aisha, I left you on a bit of a cliffhanger there. The NFC East, no longer the NFC Least. It's now the NFC Beast. What have you noticed from the growth of the NFC East over the course of the last few years?
It's the coaching. A lot of it starts with the coaching changes that have been made. I mean, what Dayball and those gentlemen have done over there. I really wanted to ask Madelyn about it, but we got so caught up in other stuff. But just the culture, they're trying to change their culture too. They're trying to change how they play football. You mentioned the fact that they, Christy, you mentioned the fact that they learned how to win games. Those are things that, that have to be taught. Like, you have to figure out how to do that. Coaches have to be situationally aware. And I agree, that's something that I thought that they did well last year. But also they flipped their roster a lot, similar as well. And sometimes that's what you have to do to improve. When you look at Philly, they went back to the Super Bowl last year after bringing in a new DC, changing their OC. Actually, their head coach was their OC. They said, maybe not. Brought in Steichen. Changes, making adjustments. And then even for the Commanders, they're still looking for their quarterback. But once they find their quarterback, both sides of those ball, like their skill position, they've drafted well. Their skill positions on the offensive side of the ball, their defensive line is one of the better ones in the league. They added Emmanuel Forbes to their secondary. They are doing things, and sometimes it takes time to get your draft right and for things to start falling your way. The improvement that I've seen really is from the draft process from all those teams, but also the ability to say, hey, this isn't working. Let's change out our coaching staff, bring some new guys in, get a new attitude to take on. And I've been impressed with them. I really do think that if it's still competitive this year, the NFC East could be the most competitive division in the NFC rather.
You make such a great point, particularly when it comes to coordinators, and that's the thing about the Giants is this offseason, there's continuity from last year to this year with Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka, and who's the offensive coordinator. And so Daniel Jones has had now a full offseason to work with these guys and stuff. And so and Martindale is very aggressive when it comes to sending extra folks. They blitz a lot. They did it last year, and so it's going to be a challenge, especially if there is an injury situation, if Tyler Smith's unable to play, if Tyron Smith is unable to play, and you've got young running backs and you got young tight ends, and everyone needs to be able to communicate when you're having to pick up some extra pass rushers. So it's going to be very interesting. And I'm so glad, Aisha, that you asked Madelyn about Thibodeau, because they, like to use him. He's a pass rusher, and kind of the way the Cowboys have liked to use Micah Parsons. And so that's going to be a really big thing, because their front is their strength with Dexter Lawrence, who made the Pro Bowl last year, Leonard Williams. They're an anchor of the line. So this is tough for any offensive line if it's all hands on deck. But if you're shorthanded, it makes it worse.
Something I wanted to make sure to mention too, Chris, you mentioned Daniel Jones, and let's go over a little bit of what he did last season. He averaged about 200 passing yards per game. He had 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and then he rushed, give or take, about 40 rushing yards per game. So Daniel Jones, not really one to use his legs a lot. However, because they shored up that offensive line during the offseason, you saw the addition of John Michael Schmitz, who, from what I've been hearing, looked pretty good. He's their second-round draft pick. He could be an upgrade for them in a very weak spot of their O-line. This means you could see Daniel Jones have that RPO a little bit more. Do I think so? I don't think that's really his style, but it's an option. It could throw people off. It gives him the time and ability to use it if he wants to with a short-up O-line, but overall, I think he's still going to be more of a pass-heavy quarterback, and maybe you don't see it as much as he's capable of doing with the pass game in this game than you will in November. But I think come November, you're going to see a very different Daniel Jones than you're going to see in this game. I think this is just going to give you a little taste. I want to count him out, guys. I think Daniel Jones has, like you said, Christy, all the ingredients working in his favor to be a very productive quarterback this season. They
certainly added those weapons in the passing game. Waller and Jalen Hyatt. Hodges came in and really provided a big boost to that passing game. He only played 7 games at the end of last season as a Giant, but did a lot in the limited time that he had. 4 touchdowns, 3 receptions at 25 yards plus. So he's a big play guy. But the thing about Daniel Jones is, thanks to his over 700 yards rushing last year, the Giants were the number 4 rated rush team last year. Saquon Barkley, and then with Daniel Jones, 7 rushing TDs, by the way. There are a lot of NFL running backs that would love to have 7 TDs, and yet Daniel Jones had it as a quarterback. So, he's kind of sneaky fast. And, to your point, Jess, I don't think it's going to be designed runs as many this year just because they've added so much to the passing arsenal.
And they paid him.
Yeah, $40 million. Yeah,
and they paid him.
He's basically got Dak's contract from a few years back. So 4 years, 160, 92 million guaranteed.
Yeah, with Dayball coming in, he brought in a little bit of the system that he had with the Bills with Josh Allen rather, and so that's where you saw some of the RPO run action. It's actually a lot of run action. They really do a lot off of play action, and I think a lot of that last year, to your point, Christy, was the fact that they didn't have a whole bunch of skill players. They didn't have as much options. So what they do offensively, they create a lot of misdirection, motion. They're trying to get the ball out and set up a lot of what they do off of the run. To your point, you brought up, you did. You brought up John Michael Schmitz. I thought he was fantastic coming out of the draft. Really gritty, great leverage. He can get to the second level. The rookie center. Jonathan Hankins, that's actually one of the matchups I'm looking for, is Jonathan Hankins and Oso Odigizua, how they fare up against this rookie, because I do think that if Daniel Jones does have opportunities in short yardage situations, John Michael Schmitz is the type of center that you get behind and you run. He has that in him. So that's a key matchup I was looking at, and so I'm glad that you mentioned it. But what they do offensively, to your point, I think they might calm down some of his running, and he better learn how to slide.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I noticed about him rewatching a lot of tape from last year. Pull yourself together. Was the fact that if he wants to elongate his career, he has to learn how to slide. He took some crazy contact last year, and I'm sure they want to preserve him to be the quarterback over time. So, Bebe.
Slide.
Better be careful.
Slide.
Better
I'm
be
not
careful
pulling
out there.
myself together. Real quick, ladies, I'm going to go around the table. We are short on time, but who is your breakout star that you're projecting for this game? We're going back to the Cowboys side of things. Who's having a great game? Who's kicking off the season on the right tone for themselves, for the team? You have to pick one guy only, offensively, defensively, special teams if you want to go that route. Who is it?
Kirsty, you go first.
No, For picking on me, you get to go first.
Barnacles. I would say Tony Pollard.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
I'll say Tony Pollard.
You can't have the same one.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go special teams and say Brandon Aubrey, because you want to set a good tone. You want to, rookie first NFL game. You want to develop the trust of teammates and coaches and, of course, fans. So I think this game is going to be closer than a lot of people think it is. And so we need to have Brandon Aubrey come out of the gate quickly and accurately.
I love accurately, yes. I'm going to go very basic. Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
I'm going very basic with
Absolutely.
this, and I don't care. It's basic. Dak Prescott, I love that the topic of conversation surrounding him today has been how he deals with the scrutiny and just over scrutiny that he gets being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for no reason at all. I'm so excited for him to put the narrative out there that their interception, who is that? I'm so excited for him to have such a strong season ahead of him. He has all the targets he needs. Brandon Cooks, he has his strong tight end room. He has 4 really running backs to his utilization. Tony Pollard ready to step up. Dak Prescott has all the weapons around him, so I'm just so excited to see him back on the field.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's about that time.
That didn't hype you up. I don't know what will.
Healthy camp, all that stuff.
Yep.
It's a big deal for him this year.
Absolutely. All right, ladies, we aren't back here until Monday at 4 o'clock. We're back to our regularly slotted programming, which will be Monday through Thursday at 4 o'clock. So make sure to mark your calendars. Set your calendars at, what is it? You're in a meeting or something? You're not available. You're just not available. You're watching Girls Talk, Boys Talk. So, Christy, have a great time at the game. Please stay safe traveling. We can't wait to hear all about what you see from the sidelines on Monday's episode. Until then, y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe as well, watching the game wherever you're watching it. Go be amazing. And for Jess, Aisha, and Christy, this has been Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We will talk to you on Monday.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!